Yeah.
Were you part of Standing Rock at the fight?
In spirit, I was in Wasatch, D.C., where there's thousands of lawyers over there. They get up every single day trying to figure out how to be greedy, be hateful, and be bad to people. The indigenous nations used to send all their chiefs over to Washington, D.C., to talk to the white grandfather. And we made all these treaties, and this is nothing new. They come back thinking they have promises, but they've always been disappointed. Disappointed. Okay? Every single treaty has been broken. Every single one. So this is nothing new. But we shouldn't take for granted what we have right now. This is still a blessing. If it weren't for the land that we're standing on right now, Unchimaka, we're standing on the ancestors of the Dakota people. If it weren't for their sacrifice, we wouldn't have all these blessings. We wouldn't exist. So this is nothing new. I'm going around and saying that what happened to our people of color or anybody who has suffered from heavy-handed militarized police, that's nothing new. Nothing new. Yeah, I mean, if we actually shared history, common history, you would know that the fur traders and the politicians making all these treaties were seizing all the lands, and then encouraging and convincing all these immigrants from Europe to come across and occupy all this land for greed. You know, so typically, for example, here in Minnesota, you had a civil war here after the Dakota discovered that they weren't going to get compensated for the money for giving up all this land, right? So there was a civil war. To make the long story short, by the time they were done, 4,000 foreign European German immigrants collecting themselves, hungry, angry, wanting to hang at least 300 Dakota, from the Civil War back in 1862. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. I'm learning.
I didn't want to lecture you.
No,
but that's what happened. But so they passed it on to Lincoln. I said, that's too much. We can't hang 300 people. So, but he had to appease all these people. Naturally, I have to believe that the immigrants were nice people. They just wanted to live and survive and try to sustain themselves. But they didn't understand that the fur traders and all these greedy politicians were trying to make a profit and trying to take advantage of people. And that involved ethnic cleansing, genocide, and were you born here?
No, I'm from New York.
Okay, I'm borrowing these words. These aren't my words. So from my elders, as I understand it, if you were born here, you're indigenous. Okay. So what's your ethnicity?
Italian, Irish.
Which one? Italian?
Italian and Irish.
Okay, so you benefit from two ancestors. You have European ancestors, and if you were born in New York, if you're here, you should know that the ancestors in New York that are long gone now are your ancestors as well. So you kind of have that burden to know your connection somehow. I want to believe that's the sent you here to try and represent or try and learn at least. But through the sacrifice of a lot of indigenous nations, this is nothing new. But I want to celebrate that. I want to thank their blessings. I want to thank those ancestors that we can exist. And what we're doing now, if we're going to get hit, if we're going to get killed, it's always long term. It's not we're not looking for a short term. So if our brothers or sisters are getting hurt, yes, but this is long term, right? 100 years from now, 7 generations from now, they are going to benefit from the sacrifices we make today. We are following the example of our ancestors. So let's go back to Lincoln. So he still had to satisfy all I should backtrack. It was ugly. There was some scalping involved on both sides. So you're burning your homes. People were hungry. All right, they had the temerity to try and exist because they were hungry. They weren't given clothes. All right, now you're going to try and survive, and now you're cutting you're making boundaries now that you can't walk here, travel here, and hunt. So it was a powder keg. So there was a civil war, and then you send a U.S. Army, the cavalry, and that's their legacy. The National Guard, the U.S. Army, typically they go to September 11 or some kind of war. Where's the terrorists?
Right.
Who's the terrorist?
Yeah.
Where's the national? Where's the disaster? There's no earthquake here. There's no tsunami. There's no tornado. The people here are doing the same, in the same breath, the temerity of the Dakota, which was trying to sustain themselves, trying to exist and not be invisible. Well, these relatives are doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. They're trying to have the temerity of not being shot for air fresheners or expired tabs. So if the youth is great. Don't you love the youth? It's the youth that moved us to the Standing Rock Water Protectors. Okay? They ran across the country. It's because of them we have the Minnewachuny movement. And the youth, it's because of them they stopped the city and the world. What happened with George Floyd? They don't ask for permission. They're non-compliant. They're unfiltered and uncensored. So they have no influence at all. But they do know the purity, the beauty of the youth is when something is wrong, you're gonna stop business as usual. And that's what they did, and that's what they're doing tonight. In the same devotion and power as what the Dakota did. And to circle back around that, Lincoln had to handwrite a list to abbreviate, to shorten that 300 list of people they wanted to hang and kill. They brought it down to 38. There were two other Dakota over here in St. Paul. There were two older elderly, so they decided to hang them over there, over at Fort Snelling. The others, the 38, were down in Mankato. All right? So he had to appease 4,000 German immigrants collected themselves in Mankato to watch the hanging, the largest mass hanging. So if you ever look at a penny, of Abraham Lincoln, it has PTSD towards some people. It's triggering what Lincoln did. That's the other side of that penny of what he's responsible. It's the largest hanging in American history by appeasing the German immigrants who wanted to be farmers to occupy the space of seized land. Seizing land is a foreign, alien concept. You give personhood to the land. That's why you call it Grandmother Earth, Unchimaka. Because this way you respect it. This way you don't over-harvest and dig it up with like what they're doing up in Canada. You always follow the protocol and paying respect. If I came to your house, I don't want to be rude to you. Out of respect, I have to follow some kind of protocol to respect you as a person. Well, the concept here is we give personhood to everything. That tree is our relative. The water is sacred. The land is sacred. And if you understand that foundation, if you peel off 5 centuries of Euro-American concept of patriarchy and systemic oppression. If you peel all of that out, you would be taught from the very beginning as a child that you are related to everything. You respect everything, and so you are careful. That means that it gives you a foundation where before you kill that deer, you're going to pay respect to it, and you're not going to kill all 100 deer or create a herd of deer to consume it and make profit. That was a foreign concept. You were always careful. Same principle with the land. You don't overdevelop or dam up the river. That's a crime against, you want to say, humanity, but if you have that personhood with the land and the mountain and the trees, that's a crime against your relatives. Okay, so if you have that kind of relationship, if you have that foundation, you are also careful with how you treat human beings, the two-legged nation. You don't kill other people. When's the last time you saw the Cherokee or the Dakota use their technology and devotion to travel across the ocean and say, okay, we seize this land. From now on, England is Dakota land. You won't find any indigenous nation seizing other lands, right, because they have that foundation and respect. Yeah. So you should know, ever since Christopher Syphilis Columbus arrived, he has been an existential threat, right? Mandated and sent from the Vatican. Everything from the Vatican on down, and every single conquistador and every single conqueror, they have been an existential threat to this nation, Turtle Island, the environment, and what we have now, which is the global climate change crisis. So, there's a lot more to say. Yeah. There's a lot to peel off, but I want you to know how meaningful it is for relatives here to stand up for what's right, because it's the same values. It's the pure values of what the rest of the country should have learned as indigenous people, which is respect other human beings. Many nations here, indigenous nations, were inclusive. They were not exclusive. We did not cage human beings. You won't find another nation here that put children in cages. It's just criminal. It's criminal. All right, so I have to honor these youth here. I respect them, I love them, because even if they don't use the words, yes, this is Dakota country and I respect Dakota, I know that our ancestors here are speaking through them. So it's a circular thing. It's not linear. It's not what Christopher Syphilis Columbus introduced here. It's very circular. And it's sacred. So they're making the space sacred. They're honoring the land. So you don't take life for granted. And the youth since Standing Rock, the youth since George Floyd, has been the intervention for the State of the Union. They have been the solution. If you had a human relationship between the people and the government, it's domestic abuse. It's domestic abuse. And what do you do with domestic abuse? You have to intervene. And that's what all these relatives have been doing. That's what all the youth have been doing. They'll take a bullet or rubber bullets and mace and chemical warfare because they are the intervention. And so I don't talk down to them. I walk with them shoulder to shoulder out of respect, and I'll hold space with them. And I've seen your work.
Thank you.
So
I appreciate it.
here is a traditional, a spiritual cultural tradition, which is to not take you for granted, out of respect. One of the things to do is to exchange gifts, and one of them is tobacco. So I appreciate your medicine, Stay safe.
I don't. Can I?
It's circular. It's not linear. Okay. Before your house, to build your house, you're gonna, if as a child you were taught to give respect, at least put some kinikinik or tobacco. Before you hunt that deer or kill that duck, you're gonna say thank you, I appreciate you, I acknowledge you for your gift, your blessings. I offer tobacco. Right? All our medicines are here, all the foods are here to sustain us, but we always pay respect because these are our relatives. Right? So, in the spirit of the youth, if we have to intervene, if we have to teach them a lesson, that's what we're doing. And you're helping us teach the people who don't understand, the disconnected, the people who don't share common history with indigenous people here. I don't know if that helped you.
Hold on.
You tell him I met him in Washington, D.C. And you tell him, I know he's had some problems. You tell him I met him in Washington, D.C. Jordan, if you're listening.
Watching, yeah.
And I respect you because you are responsible for showing the world what happened at Standing Rock. It was your work. It was your body of work. And along with the elders there at Sacred Stone Camp, I appreciate you. Don't think that you're not appreciated at all. Don't think that at all. We know what you did. We know what you did in 2016. We know what you did in 2017. And you created a body of work that educated a lot of people, and you created a lot of water protectors all over the world. You should know that. Shukran. Shalom to you. Lachaim.
Beautiful.
Easy.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.